Welcome to Leading with Artivism. Leading with Artivism is a live monthly interview series created and curated by Poet Gold in collaboration with Arts Mid-Hudson, featuring a diverse mix of artivists, artist activists who have taken up the charge through their art to highlight social issues. We invite you to ask questions and get an inside look at the hearts and minds of these courageous creatives.
Welcome, everyone, to Leading with Artivism. I'm your host, Poet Gold. And I want to start by saying thank you to the Junior League of Poughkeepsie for sponsoring Leading with Artivism. Today's show is a youth roundtable. We've invited a number of youth to voice their ideas and share with us their artistry and talk about how their art has become a catalyst of change in their respective communities. We have with us Harrison Brisbane McKinnon, Jada Woodall, Miguel Lito Coqui Sanchez, and Rose Mariah Garcia, who will be joining us later. She's a little stuck in traffic right now. So what I'd like to do is bring all those artists forward, if I can, or if we can, rather. Hey, guys.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Doing great.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We have a slew of questions that people have submitted, and I'm so happy. I always love it when people submit questions to our audience. To our guests, so you guys can answer it. So, but first, let's tell them a little bit about yourself. Why don't we start with Harrison?
Hi, my name is Harrison Brisbane McKinnon. I go by any pronouns, and I'm a freshman at Vassar. I'm currently studying sociology, and to me, my art is a way to convey my understanding or perception, rather, of human nature and the origins of our being.
Great. Lito Coqui. Thank you, Harrison. Is Lito with us? We may have lost his internet. So why don't we, yes, we did lose him. Jada?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jada Woodall. My pronouns are she and her. I am 21 years old, currently a graduate student studying literacy education. So education's kind of my vibe, along with art. I use my art to connect with people with certain experiences that I had as a Black woman on this earth, and as well just to get my message across on how much it impacts my life and how much it impacts Black students or Black individuals around me. Art has been a part of my life for a long time. I dance, I sing, I paint, I kind of do anything that I like to do creative-wise. I do video editing, kind of an amalgamation of all artsy stuff together.
Wonderful. I know, Jada, I think the first time I believe that I came across your work was when you were in Hair.
Yes.
Yes. And we met underneath the underpass. Mm-hmm. And then I actually came to your show, and someone grabbed me and pulled me onto the stage.
Yes.
And since then, we've had the opportunity to work together in Poetry Fest. I then invited you on to Poetry Fest. You did an excellent job. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And Harrison, I believe you won the Youth with Promise Award. Is that the correct name of it?
Yes, I won that for the 2021 year.
And can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
So the Youth Artist with Promise Award is an award given by Arts Mid-Hudson, and it speaks to young one person, or it's a gift to one young person who shows or demonstrates a willfulness to practice art in the Mid-Hudson Valley region.
Yes, I think the correct name is Youth with Exceptional Promise in the Arts, and you were that as well. And I was just about to ask Lito Coqui another question, and he's gone. So why don't we start? Because like I said, we have a list of wonderful questions. Why don't we start here? What can adults do to amplify youth voice? That was one of the questions. What can adults do to amplify the youth voice in communities? Anyone want to take a stab at it?
I'll take that one first.
Okay.
It might sound silly, but adults can listen. There's a difference between listening and hearing somebody. Some people do one and not the other. So actively listening and not listening to respond, but listening to understand whether it's, youth talking in conversation, regular, one-on-one conversation, or big groups, or, seeing maybe Jada Woodall's poetry online, anything like that. Listening to understand, and sharing stuff on social media is probably a big one as well. If if my art is on social media, not everybody's is. And another thing I would say is continued conversations, because those need to happen regardless when and where. But amplifying our voices by sharing social media and probably active listening, I would say.
Active listening. And I love the way you say active listening. It's such a teacher term.
Sorry.
I can tell you've moved into the education realm. You know, definitely active listening. That's so important. But how might Harrison? How might young artists interact with children in Poughkeepsie through the arts?
I think I especially want to highlight Mary Haddad, who is a local artist in the area. She actually did this with Oakwood, and she did a mural that was color by number. I think we can engage young people in the arts, especially in this region, by allowing them to turn it into a creative outlet, almost a space for like expression that they might not have access to in other spheres of their life. So make art an outlet for young people.
To make art very good, to make art an outlet for young people. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that's really important, learning how to integrate art in education. So that, because not everyone communicates the same way, and a child may be able to, may not be able to articulate something through words, but they may be able to express it through theater or through dance, their understanding. And this leads to my next question. What can our schools do to help overcome the opportunity gaps facing our students? I know that's a heavy question there. And I'll repeat that question. What can our schools do to help overcome the opportunity gaps facing our students? And maybe even look at it from an artistic perspective. Do you feel that there's something that the arts can bring to the table in order to sort of minimize the gap of achievement, bring it within reach for more students?
I think first in general, then looking at the art perspective, in general, our schools need to have consistent education, and not for just the students, but mostly for the teachers and the employees that are working with these kids, because they don't necessarily understand the situations that some might be placed in, not their doing. That's just kind of how they're living. A lot of teachers in this day and age don't understand that because they haven't experienced it themselves, or, they don't put in the effort to educate themselves about that. Our teachers need to be culturally competent. They need to understand these cultures and not just, oh yeah, this exists, but what does that mean? Why do we need to expose these children to these different cultures? In terms of the struggles that these students face because of these situations, as you said earlier, Poet Gold, they might not have the means to communicate verbally what they're experiencing. Giving, whether it's a crayon and a piece of paper, or a conversation, or a sculpture made out of clay, like literally anything, it will help them. And I feel like sometimes we fail to realize that it doesn't have to be like, okay, how are you feeling today? It can just be them sitting and coloring. And sometimes you can tell a lot by one little drawing, and sometimes it's just a release for them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Licho, I see that you popped back in here, so I'm going to bring you into this conversation here. And we were talking about opportunity gaps in school, but I want to know for you in Poughkeepsie School specifically, how did the arts elevate your experience in the school in Poughkeepsie?
Well, first of all, I want to say I thank you for having me a part of this, and second of all, my apologies for like the technical difficulties. But in high school, originally when I was a freshman,
Mm-hmm.
in my aspect for the arts, and since I'm a musician, there wasn't really too many aspects that were available or any opportunities that were available for me in the beginning. And I'm a hip hop artist, so I felt like a little neglected at first, but then eventually we were able to start a performing arts group. And when we did that, I felt like it gave a lot of people a voice, especially a lot of the acts that we would do would represent a lot of our community, dealing with different aspects of racism, as well as addressing different parts of history, whether if it became Latin history or African American history. And I feel like that was very crucial for my education, for the simple fact that when you have lack of art, you have lack of culture. When you have a lack of culture, you have a lack of self. And when you have a lack of self, there's no possible way that you're able to progress. You know what I'm saying? You have no possible way to progress or elevate yourself. You have a lack of knowledge yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Chills. Chills. Thank you for that. Chills.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Harrison, do you want to comment on what Lito was just saying? Do you have any feedback on that?
No, 100%. So I wholeheartedly I 100% here for the expression of oneself through different mediums. We're so used to one conveying how one feels or what one thinks through what they say, but we know that body language is important. We know that dance is a very captivating expression. We know that sometimes we look at a painting and say that's really connects with me. I think schools could definitely bridge the gap if they drop the whole motif of the starving artist. It broke down that concept. If we got rid of it, then we would notice and we would look around that everything that ever is created had to be designed by an artist and then created by another artist, if not the same one. Yeah. And then to appreciate that all these different people that make our furniture or our clothing or our hairstyles are expressing what they like to see in the world. And then we will finally respect them and honor them because they are critical.
You're speaking to my heart. We had a conversation over dinner the other night about the starving artists thing. And I was pointing out that I never took that on because just the whole concept of it, and I didn't understand how artists can even embrace that and celebrate it, because it's not about starving. It can become work just like anything else, and it should be you should be compensated for your art, and you have to work towards a certain elevation of monetary gain in your art, just like any other job that you're going to once you make the decision to become a professional. And so you hit the nail on the head there. What I'd like to do is bring up, I think Jada has a video. I'm sorry, Jada, I forgot the Overcoming the Odds. Is that the name of it?
Defying. Yep, you got it.
Defying the Odds. I have a wonderful team in the background, Melissa from Arts Mid-Hudson, and I believe Christian is someone new. Can you bring up the video for Jada, please?
Black excellence shouldn't be treated as a rare occurrence. Excellence, Black excellence, excel to surpass expectations, to be superior. The celebration of success, the state of defying the odds. The odds stacked against us just so happen to be as large as this country. This country whose foundation is laid on our backs. The odds seem a little too common. The odds I can't even begin to explain, the deep roots of our situation, hidden roots, but you know that they're there. It is what is keeping it from toppling over. Black excellence. our situation, the situation that can easily be ruled as lifelong criminal negligence, the subliminal message that silences us. The silence only lasts so long. If you keep shoving things down, they eventually burst up and out. Forgive us if we are loud, but some of you still aren't listening, surprised when we speak with such eloquence, the genesis of this buildup created by you. We speak as if our life depends on it only because it does. Ruby built bridges, Rosa fed it from the start. Parks, Malcolm, exceptional advocate. Harriet, underground bravery, Tubman. Jackie, Major League Robinson, Sojourner, tell my truth. Henrietta lacked bodily autonomy. Langston, hear my blues, W.E.B., our voice. Names left unsaid, Black children looking to see themselves in our books. They begin to ponder possibilities, their arts, their efforts, their work. They ponder the presence of their pain, looking and hoping for a way to be inspired. People, names, faces, heroic action, losing traction. According to our textbooks, only some of us can be great. Little to no recognition, there's no revision of history, although you seem to think omission is satisfactory. Fill our textbooks with future Black leaders for our future Black leaders. Lead them to believe that they can be leaders today, tomorrow, and every day. You can't be what you can't see. What I see is that they can be leaders now. Lord knows we need you now.
Thank y'all.
Yes.
It's sometimes like I haven't looked at that video in a minute. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I was like, okay, I said that. I remember saying that. Sometimes it takes a lot to step back from your art for a second and then put yourself back in it, and I'm able to see it through like your eyes basically. But yeah, I made that earlier this year for a school that was doing a presentation on something along the lines of Black excellence for Black History Month. So that was where that came from. But yeah.
You can't be what you can't see.
That's exactly what I just wrote, because I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that spoke to me as a child, that I didn't see Black women being teachers.
Right.
And it took me a long time to realize I wanted to be a teacher. Right. So, you know, little Jada screaming inside. So proud of myself for, you know, where I am right now. But yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which brings me to the next question. Since we're talking about leading with Artivism, what is Artivism? And I'd like each one of you to, you know, take a shot at it. What is Artivism to you? And Vito, let's start with you.
Whoa, you're gonna start with me, put me in a hot seat.
Put you in a hot seat, yeah.
But you know, Artivism obviously is the root word of activism, obviously. So Artivism, in like the sense of like the definition to me.
Yes, for you.
Artivism basically is a form of a way to use my art as a representation for my mission and my goal. And the first step of that is understanding what the goal is and understanding what the mission is. Like me personally, I'm all about brown and Black unity. I'm all about peace in the community. I'm all about the youth and putting our children in the correct direction so they don't lead a life of crime, so they don't go into a certain path that certain people aren't even capable of avoiding, whether if it's issues at home, if it's issues with education. So one thing that reaches out to everybody, whether if it's kids in the suburbs, if it's Black, brown, white, Middle Eastern, Asian, no matter where you're from, where you're located, the one thing that always reaches the people is art, whether if it's visual or auditorial. No matter where it comes from, people will always be bound to listen, because once again, art is also a form of culture.
Right.
So in a sense, that is representation of the culture. If it's the representation of the culture, it's a representation of ourselves. And like I said before, when you have a lack of self, you end up doing things, whether if it's in the streets, if it's in school, if it's at work, or in life, you end up doing things that you don't understand why you do it, whether if it's good or bad. And then when you lead that kind of life, everything becomes confusing, and then our people become depressed, and then we become oppressed, and then it's a never-ending cycle.
Wow. I like the way that you connected, all of that just seamlessly. Harrison, what about you? Thank you, Lito.
So for me, activism through art is much more passive, especially since coming to Vassar and my experience with interacting with people of different races and my own experience with racism here. I think being an art activist is, for my perspective, is being a lot more passive. Um, it's engaging people subtly and subconsciously by just showing people art, things that they normally wouldn't see, like young Black talent. Maybe they don't expect people of color to be brilliant, so just not by telling them I am brilliant, but just allowing them to bear witness to it. I think that's activism. By seeing Black teachers. Yeah.
Thank
Love
you.
that.
Thank you. I love that. Jada?
Yes, if I were to put artivism in my own words, I would just say that it's combating the injustices through art in general. And I like how Lido added the different types of art forms. So for me, that's poetry. But the first art form that really spoke to me, I think, when I was younger was dance. And the thing about dance is you can show that to anybody that speaks any language and they will understand the feelings that you're conveying there. I had a dance video up on my YouTube channel, and I watched it as if I was someone who didn't know Harriet Tubman. And I was able to see the struggle in my own body, and that's exactly what I wanted to convey. And Harrison, I loved how you spoke about like the passiveness of it, and like, they might not expect me to be so eloquent. They might not expect me to say these, these great layered connected ideas. They might not expect that. And I love that you made that connection, Harrison. Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, I believe Rose Mariah is coming in, and so that's wonderful. Thank you. So here's my next question. How can we use welcome, Rose Mariah?
Hi, hello everyone.
I'm glad you were able to make it. So we're just doing a roundtable of questions, that I have here, and I'm going to after I ask this question, I want you to also introduce yourself, okay, and let us know what you do. All right. Thank you. So how can we use art to engage the large homeless and addicted community on the streets? So I don't want to put you on the spot, Rose Mariah, but since you just come into the party, I'm going to ask you to tell the audience, what you do, and then maybe you want to, start answering this question.
Okay, so hello everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Rose Mariah Garcia. I am a performer, an activist, a youth teacher. My favorite thing to do is to create a bridge between performing arts and our front door. I like to create programs and create events that bring together different generations and that allow performing arts to be accessible to the youth in the community.
Thank you. So now, how can we use art to engage the large homeless and addicted community on the streets?
I think making it more accessible, bringing it outside. I think one thing that's great in our community that I would love to see more of is just like these events where you're like walking on the street and you see something happening and you just feel it's inclusive. So you feel like you can just walk in and start participating in the activity. Like a lot of like the mural paintings that happen where they create, different events around something that is also bringing beauty to the community. And definitely just more like free and accessible events.
Wonderful. Does anyone else want to, take that on? Harrison, you have any feedback on that?
100%. I went to the thought of Boogie Res and their mural under the underpass, and my personal experience with that mural. It's the colors are really loud and very saturated, and that allows for me to have a great contrast with the homeless people or the unhoused people who sleep under the underpass for shelter. And I think I think it's more of a passive approach to like force you to bear witness. Like you cannot pretend like there isn't a person there trying to seek shelter when they're clearly a whole different color than their background. They can't blend in. They have to stand out and you have to watch them. And then you have to make the conscious choice to keep on walking or to engage with a human being. And I don't know if that was their intention, but now you have an extra experience with that piece. And I think if not by forcing people's attention to unhoused people, and I think creating art pieces that are more like structural or provide shelter could be a way to help.
Thank you. Anyone else have any feedback on that?
Rosemary, what you were saying, I definitely agree with. That was part of my answer as well, with the events and bringing it outdoors. And what comes with that is open arms. Not everybody will have that. We are humans that has a lot of judgment in our bodies. If we approach a certain situation, or a person approaches us and they are just looking to find community, and our arms are closed and we don't show them attention, we don't interact with them, that's not going to feel great. We need to put ourselves in their shoes. We might not know their exact situation. They might be kind enough to tell us their situation, but we need to bear in mind that they are people.
Right. I love there's a T-shirt that says "I am human." And sometimes I believe when we pass the homeless, sometimes we forget that.
Yes.
That this is another human being that had a mother or a father. They may have children. You just don't know of their circumstance. Lito, you have any feedback on that?
Absolutely. I just want to give like love and praise to all of y'all, because you guys kind of knocked it out the park. I don't feel like I even have any words for after all of that. But actually currently my mother and her friend Carlos actually have this movement called Sober Life, where once a month we actually do a cookout with 100 hamburgers and 100 hot dogs for the homeless. So we could sit down and we could actually talk to them and actually discuss about what they have going on, listen to some music, and find out their story, so we can figure out what's the next step in order to help them out. And I also like to bridge back to the structural aspect. Yeah, can't pronounce stuff today. And to the more of the event and program aspect. I feel like that would be perfect, especially combining the two, and especially putting that outside, because when everything is all sheltered and always put over to the side or inside the building and all that, people don't really feel welcome. And having more positive people be there to open them, like, hey, come over here, hang out a little bit, dance a little bit, listen to music, listen to some art, see some art, listen to some poets, learn a little bit about some fashion, and then just have a conversation. And then after we do that, we are able to spark the mind, because everybody knows that you can't just force feed somebody knowledge.
Right.
You got to spoon feed them a little bit. You can't just shove everything all in their face. That's why doing an event like that is 100% perfect, because then it puts them in the next direction. All right, so now you have a voice. We want you to have a voice. Now, what's the next step?
It is so true. I know when I used to do open mic in the Valley, and I think that's where I met little Rose Mariah at that time. Your mom used to bring you through and used to get on the mic and sing. I've had the opportunity to watch her grow, and it's been really, really beautiful. There was a family once, a homeless family, or a family that wasn't of great means, and they would stand outside the venue and look in on Main Street. And so one day I said, "Why don't you come in?" And they said, "We don't belong in there." And I said, "If I'm in there, you belong in there." So I just said, go home and just wash your baby's face. I said, bring the whole family. And so when they came in there, I brought them food. They sat down and they had a really wonderful time, and but that's what it's about, making these things accessible, like all of you have said, the accessibility to the homeless, in order to be a catalyst of change for them, in order to let them know that, no, they're a part of a community as well. So yeah, great responses, guys. Has there been an influential place or person specific to your local community reflected in your work at all? What have been your local influences, if there has been any? Anyone want to take it? I mean, there may not have been any, but just out of curiosity, it's one of the questions that's on here.
Me personally, I feel like the town itself
Hmm.
is influential as a whole because there's different aspects and there's different locations. Because everybody knows that besides the five boroughs, Poughkeepsie is also one of the most diverse places in New York.
Mm.
You can find different. We got the suburbs. We got what you call the ghetto. You got places where are getting gentrified. You have places that are trying their best to keep their cultural roots, and you have different aspects that you just see every day. And that I believe that even all of us sitting right here even express that in our art every single day.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's true what you're saying, Lito, because it's one of the reasons why I stayed about 16 years ago when I came. It was the diversity of cultures that exist in the city of Poughkeepsie, and I'm a foodie, so so I was like, there's so much food up here that's good. There's the Latin food, there's Japanese, there's Spanish food, there's Caribbean food, there's Indian food. I mean, there's so many. The art of food is very prevalent in our city. And, does anyone else want to take a stab at that before we move on to the next question of what maybe some of your local influences have been? Brisbane, I mean Harrison. I called you by your last name. I'm sorry, Harrison.
That's fine. I want to shout out Destiny Ariana. She is an Indigenous Black woman and a great mentor of mine, who has really just shown me what portraits could really mean, and how self-image could be influenced, and how it could be a political message.
Thank you. Rosemary, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Yeah. I have a few. I'm just gonna do like a shout out of a whole bunch.
Okay, go
Because
ahead.
I always think about this all the time. Like, definitely like Mill Street Law, the artifact.
Hmm.
Like when I used to go Mill Street Law, because I remember when I first moved to Poughkeepsie and I felt really, really out of place. It opened the door to that diversity of what Poughkeepsie was, of like the art scene, the different. I met you there too. Like you did a workshop with us about rhyming and poetry, and it was just so nice to be exposed to all these different things. And I knew that when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but then I realized like, hey, maybe I want to do programming, because in that little time, without having to stick to a curriculum, I can introduce these children to so many different things. And then my mother as well, Mercedes, because she would do these indigenous art exhibitions.
Hmm.
And it was so beautiful just seeing everyone come from all over the place just to come together to celebrate Taino culture. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of Taino art exhibitions at all. Like even growing up, I didn't know what Taino art was. And it was like that process of refinding our culture and piecing it together through different organizations, all the way from Florida, Puerto Rico. It was just beautiful. And I knew that I wanted to do something like that as well.
Yes, and to your point in regarding to your mom, Mercedes, she raised my awareness with Taino culture and art, and I'm so appreciative of that. Jada, were there any local influences, in the Hudson Valley?
Yeah, so most would think a positive influence, but that's not always true. I went through a lot of experiences in the schools that I went to that gave me a lot of these negative experiences, and I'm not like heard about it or anything. I actually use it to power my art, and
Yes.
they're the reason I have so many great things to say and things to address. And, I've met a lot of great teachers from that district as well. So definitely the people that have supported me throughout my way. And Poet Gold, I'll give you a little shout out here because you have taught me that I should be compensated for the art and the work that I do. I think you were the first person to actually introduce me to that. So I've definitely kept that with me. So thank you for being the first one who really valued my art and showed me that I should be compensated for the work that I
Absolutely. Every single one of you are worthy of that. I always tell artists, um, it's a ladder. When I first started, I was doing things for $25 because I was starting, but I wanted to make it a practice of, yes, there's an expectation of compensation because I have bills like you have bills, and I was willing to earn it. And then, the next year I said, if I can get 3 figures, that'll be great. And so you got to put it out there. So I got that. And I said, if I can get 4 figures within the next 3 years, I want that. And so you grow with that. You don't have these unrealistic expectations, but you should expect, if you're working on your craft as a professional, at some point to get compensated for what you do. And we have to, teach folks to be able to do that because we're not used to doing that. I think, Harrison, you pointed it out early on. We're not used to being paid, quote unquote, we should be the starving artist. But the first thing everyone wants to do when they buy a home or get an apartment is put art on the wall. They want to put art on the wall. So, yeah. One last, we have time for another question. Let's see. I'm going to try to combine what do you need to get to what you see as the next step. Okay, so I'm combining these two. What do you want to reach and or see as your audience, and what do you need to get to make that happen?
Motivation, time, and support.
Okay.
Motivation and time is a me thing. Support
Okay.
is something we can get from the community or people we know. As for who I'd like to reach with my art, anyone who will listen.
Got
That's
you.
really it. That's really it.
Got you. Thank you. Harrison.
What I need from myself is I think in order to find myself, I need to get lost first. And I need from my community to throw me in a labyrinth of discovery. So that's what I need I need to be challenged.
You need to be challenged. Okay, thank you. Lito.
Say the question one more time, because he just.
Okay, yes. This is the lightning round. Okay, what do you want to reach and or see as your audience combined with, and what do you need to get to what you see as the next steps?
My people, my country, my nation, everybody that I consider a part of me, as well as my peers, is what I want to reach. And overall, the next step and my goal is to put my voice out there and use it to put it to different levels and use it to inspire people all across the globe, the town, the nation, the world.
Thank you. Rose Mariah?
So what I need for myself is stillness. I've been doing a lot, and I learned so much this summer working at the Artifact, doing youth counseling with Esperanza, Unity and Hope, and working with the youth nonstop. I need stillness so I can go into proper hibernation with good reflection so I can emerge with the energy that I need. And then what I need would be support, whether that be in funding or volunteering, just, I guess, bodies to help create these ideas that I have in my head. And then what my goal is, who I want to reach. I definitely want to reach the youth, but I also want to target this middle area of like 17 to like 24, where people think like because they didn't do good in high school or they didn't go to college. And I see like a lot of people love music, they love creativity, they do art, they doodle, but because of the song that America has right now with the pain and the economic suffering and just like that whole situation, the song that I'm hearing a lot is a song of sadness and pain. And I'm hearing a lot of violence. So I really think like, people take care of their kids, people take care of their elders, but that kind of middle ground, people sometimes miss it. And I just want to be able to reach them and let them know you can do it. Do your music, record your music, Go to college for music. Go to Dutchess. They have a great program. Go to an open mic. Express yourself. Feel it out. Express it. I definitely want to reach that audience right there.
Well, you tapped upon which would have been maybe a question about the 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 planet and the earth and the society being in trouble. Um, in deep trouble, as someone puts it, and how do you approach trying to influence humans and industrial behaviors that are damaging or unsustainable? And you actually tackled that in your statement. So I want to thank all of you for coming on. Leading with Artivism. This was great. This was
Thank you.
absolutely great. It was really wonderful having the conversation with you, Jada Woodall. Thank you. Miguelito Coqui Sanchez, thank you. Rosamaya Garcia, thank you. Harrison Brisbane McKinnon, thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being the future artist. Thank you for holding it down. And thank you for leading with Artivism. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me to do this.
Anytime. So coming up next month, we have Carol Bash, an award-winning director whose focus has been documentaries, and I'm so excited to have her come up next month for Leading with Artivism. Some of her programming have been on HBO as well, and so tune in next month. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now LinkedIn as well. I'm your host, Poet Gold, and thank you, Art Mid-Hudson. Thank you to the great team at Art Mid-Hudson. I appreciate you so much, Melissa. You just don't know. Good night, everyone.